NBA ratings are down 28% from last year on ESPN, and I think it's officially time to panic. Less than a decade ago, the wars between Steph Curry's Golden State Warriors and LeBron James's Cleveland Cavaliers dominated primetime slots and brought in monster ratings. In the 4 consecutive years they played in the NBA Finals, no game dropped below 16 million viewers. But since 2020, no NBA Finals game has reached over 14 million, and this ratings problem has translated over to the regular season. It feels as though interest in this league is the lowest it's been in over 2 decades, and it's not a sudden issue. It's something that's been lingering since the bubble. But what makes this issue so complicated is that there's not one direct thing. It's a number of things that need to change in order for this league's fortunes to turn around. The first and most important issue the NBA needs to figure out is the lack of new star power. The NBA today relies on the brand of LeBron, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant. That's apparent when you look at the number of nationally televised games each player's team will have later this season, as the Suns, Warriors, and Lakers ranked 8th, 3rd, and 1st respectively compared to the rest of the league, even with the expectation that the Warriors and Lakers would be middling teams at best. This over-reliance has caused for younger stars like Luka, Shea, Tatum, and even Jokic and Giannis to feel lesser than and not on the same level of the older stars of the past. The NBA did a great job in years past with marketing younger stars, even in smaller markets, while keeping the focal point on the global superstars. But in the past 5 years, it seems like the focus has shifted almost exclusively to promoting stars of the past and relying on the nostalgia factor, which just doesn't work when it comes to May and June, especially last season when the Final 4 teams were led by stars 26 years old or younger. Maybe there's a reason why the NBA isn't promoting these young stars because of their nationality and fears of a Serbian and Slovenian not connecting with the American audience. But at least try to give them some more primetime slots and positive media coverage and see where it goes from there. And that's what brings me to my next point, being the media coverage of these players and teams. The biggest sports media personalities in the NBA today are Stephen A. Smith and the Inside the NBA guys, and I don't think it's relatively close in terms of popularity. It's of course great to have Hall of Famers and Kenny the Jet Smith talk about hoops a couple times a week, and while their show is extremely entertaining, it's mostly harmful towards the players and teams in the league today. Take for instance Charles Barkley criticizing the Houston Rockets this past Wednesday after their win over the Golden State Warriors. Now, was it the best showing from Houston? Absolutely not. But this was one of their first primetime slots this season, and in big pressure moments, sometimes young teams fold. But instead of talking about their stifling defense or Şengün putting up a 26-11, it instantly went to criticism of the team and saying that they don't have any idea how to play basketball. How is that promoting the game in a positive light when you're actively dissing one of the youngest and most potential-filled teams in the league for one bad game? And then you have Stephen A. Smith on ESPN, who outed himself last year as not watching Knicks games as a Knicks fan when he praised Quentin Grimes' game 2 months after he got traded and Isaiah Hartenstein as a bench piece even though he was a starter. The code at ESPN, at least now, is to target the casual fan who supports LeBron and the Lakers or any of the other big market teams. But this formula just keeps pushing aside and criticizing the new generation, which in turn delegitimizes younger stars that the NBA needs to start promoting. Now, of course, I'm not saying to promote these stars no matter what, because criticizing players is the media's right, and I've certainly done my fair share of criticizing on this channel. It just feels like now more than ever, the media personalities and even social media users find a way to hate on the best players in the world and not appreciate the greatness they're seeing. Just on paper, the NBA should be nearing all-time high numbers in terms of ratings. The league has never seen this much talent, both young and old, and the players now more than ever have the ability to connect with fans on a personal level. But for some reason, something just isn't clicking. And I think part of that reason is the negativity you see towards these players on social media and on your television screen. But speaking of television screens, another reason why I believe the NBA is failing is because of the lack of interest in regular season games. Let's face it, not many people nowadays sit down and watch a full 3-hour basketball game, and if it's on, you're probably multitasking and finishing work or browsing social media. That's the way that it is, and more likely than not, I'll be multitasking too. What hurts the regular season ratings so much though is the highlight culture we've created, where as soon as a fun or exciting play happens, it's on social media in seconds, and people don't actually have to spend 3 hours of their lives watching a basketball game. They can feel caught up with what's happening in 30 seconds by waking up in the morning and scrolling through NBA Central or another account like that. Because you're not incentivized to watch these games, you won't. You'll just do something else with your life and get caught up later. And I think that more so has to do with the social media society we live in today rather than the NBA. However, what I do believe needs to change is interest in the regular season as a whole. At a point in time, it doesn't feel like I need to watch these games. I of course will, but I understand which teams are good and which teams are bad. And if I tuned into the NBA in a month after football was wrapping up, I would probably see only one or two teams drastically switch their position in the standings. So what would be the point of me watching these games if I already know which teams are good and I can get my daily recap in seconds? Well, what the NBA is trying to do is promote the NBA Cup. And while I think it's been really solid these past couple of weeks, clearly the average fan doesn't care. And without those older stars in the Final Four, ticket sales have plummeted and ratings likely will as well. I just don't know what the solution to this problem is, but I think it does come back to the previous problems I've mentioned, like putting the best teams in games on primetime rather than the big market teams. The ratings suck anyways, and that small hit you're going to take is worth it to continue promoting the stars of the future. And as a quick rant, I'd also like to say that it's extremely hard to watch certain games even though I have League Pass. I can't watch the nationally televised games as they're happening, which I guess I can understand, though I'd like to see some agreement come through in the next couple of years to change that, and I can't see the teams that the NBA deems are local markets. I live in Louisiana, and when I go home to north central Louisiana, I'm blacked out from watching the Pelicans, Mavericks, and Rockets, even though with cable, I'd only have the ability to watch the Pelicans, and I live more than 5 hours away from both the Rockets and Mavericks arena. It feels like a dirty system that's making fans not want to support their local teams unless they have cable, which, newsflash NBA, nobody does. That's why I love the NFL and how they broadcast their games. You know Fox and CBS will have their games on in the afternoon, and if you want, you can pay extra for Red Zone or YouTube TV to watch all the games. That's a perfect system and easily accessible. The NBA needs to figure out a way to make these games be more accessible to the average fan, or else interest in these teams will continue to dwindle. The last and maybe most important reason why NBA ratings are down is the lack of unique playing style and the complete overhaul of the playing style within the past couple of years. I'll hit that first point really quickly, and it's that with the exception of superstars, we don't have many unique playing styles anymore. With the boom of the three-point shot in the last decade, teams are prioritizing guys who can shoot and defend over players with post moves or mid-range jumpers. And because of that, every team feels somewhat similar. Just a decade ago, you had 1 to 2 specialists per team who could attack you in a bunch of different ways. Today, when you look at a team, you have the 1 to 2 stars who can do it all and a bunch of guys who can space the floor. There's nothing wrong with having guys who can space the floor, but more likely than not, if you can't shoot or defend at an elite level, you're not going to be in the league. And because of that, you're seeing players who are proficient at post moves or mid-range scoring lose their jobs every season because the NBA is shifting away from that playing style and focusing more on three-point shooting. And while the games are more high scoring and move faster, we're losing the uniqueness of players, specifically role players, that made the NBA so special in the first place. It would be like in the NFL if every quarterback was mobile and ran a sub 4.6 second 40-yard dash. Of course, Lamar would still be extremely impressive, but he loses some of the shine because he's not the only one who can run out of the pocket and get 15 to 20 yards. The explosive plays are only explosive because they're unique. If everyone had speed like Tyreek Hill, then it's not as cool when he gets a 50-yard touchdown off a slant. Just like it's not as cool when Steph Curry hits 5 threes in a game when 90% of the NBA can do that on any given night. And overall, it's just not as fun to watch these stars do what they do if everyone can do it given the opportunity. And that's mainly because the playing style of the NBA has shifted drastically, so much so that it's lost many casual fans in the process. Going from a league that mainly dominated in the paint and mid-range for 60 plus years to a league that mainly dominates the three-point line was a big step to make, especially considering it happened so quickly. Again, just 10 years ago, the game was different. Sure, the signs were there that the league would soon be dominated by three-pointers, but we still had an older generation that preserved that 2000 style of basketball. But now that they've all retired, the playing style requires you to have a proficient 20-foot jumper, and a lot of fans just don't want to see that. Of course, there are some exceptions, but overall, one could argue that the playing style has just gone too extreme. We have 35 guys in the NBA today taking over 7 threes a night. Just 10 years ago, we only had 4 guys taking over 7 threes a night. The extremism of the three-point explosion and the stigma that players just jack up threes to increase their stats and the point total has caused for the casual fan to work the NBA out of their normal sports rotation, and that's a problem that the NBA needs to fix. Of course, the solution isn't as easy as disincentivizing threes, because that's never going to happen, but something needs to, whether it be the reintroduction of hand checking and physical defense, or pushing the three-point line back a couple of feet, like how the NBA pushed it forward for a couple of years in the 90s. Or else this league could go through some serious financial pains in the next decade. Or this could all just be the growing pains of the new era. If you remember the years after Jordan retired, the NBA ratings were down for almost a decade. Maybe the NBA is just going through a rough patch before finding another renaissance like in the 80s, 90s, and 2010s. But as of this moment, there needs to be concern from Adam Silver and other higher-ups, or else the NBA as we know it could be in trouble. If there was any other reason why the NBA ratings are down, or if you just want to give your thoughts on the situation, make sure to leave it in the comments section below. And remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as any and all support is greatly appreciated. So with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.